Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Vajza Gra.
My name is Dita.
And I'm Diana.
And in today's episode, we're gonna talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me.
We've been waiting to say that line for a while now.
I'm officially announcing my career as a music artist.
Ooh.
I'm just kidding. I wish.
Do you have any updates to give us?
Like life updates?
Yeah. Tell us about what's going on. I know you told us you were starting to date in the last episode. So what's the tea on that?
Oh my God. So I went on 2 dates. Surprisingly, I never leave my house. I'm such a hermit. But I was like, Dita, you have to go out. You have to put yourself out there.
Exactly.
The first guy was okay. Not really that into it. The second guy though, like I did not connect with at all. I don't know. Okay, I don't know what it is. I just lately, every time I attempt to go on a date or talk to somebody, I instantly find like a red flag or like this one guy, I started talking to him and he gave me his Snapchat and I was like, automatically no.
Oh, that is my biggest red flag. Like,
no.
How old are you?
The dude is like, I think he's like 27. And I literally told him, I was like, you're a grown man. Why are you giving me your Snapchat?
People?
Why are you using Snapchat? At this point, I've given up. So Dita tried to put herself out there and I've given up.
You can't give up with 2 dates.
I just, like I said, I don't think the love of my life is in New York. So I'm officially giving up. I'm going back into hermit mode.
Why? What is it about this man that's such a deal breaker that you can't even put yourself out there? What's the deal breaker here?
Actually, you know what? You know what realize is the deal breaker for me? And I'm going to mention it because it has to do with this podcast. And I think it's a perfect segue. I hate when a guy like jumps straight away into asking me very, very personal questions about my sex life. Like has this ever happened to you where a guy asks about how many partners you've had or about your sexual history? And I'm like, you're not even my man. What does this have to do with anything?
Like, how do you know you're going to get to that point with me?
First of all. Second of all, any guy that I've ever like had feelings for or dated has never asked me about my sexual history because I don't think that they thought it had anything to do with my character. Like they thought like whatever you did before me is none of my business.
Yeah.
Type shit. I like that attitude. I think that is so hot.
You know, people are going to call you, they're probably like, she wants the guy that doesn't care about that because she's been a hoe.
I'm actually not a promiscuous person at all. I'm really the opposite. And you know this. You can vouch for this. I'm not a promiscuous person, but it's the fact that you're asking me the question because you're asking me the question, I think that you're going to contribute that as something like to do with my value as a person. And that's a red flag and that's a turn off. And next.
I hate when the first date involves talk about sex in general.
Same. Like I get so turned off.
Like, first date is for you to ask me where I'm from, what my favorite color is.
For me, first dates are all about vibing and the energy to see if we vibe and if you make me laugh and if I make you laugh.
Yes.
It's not about jumping into asking personal questions. If we're dating and we are intimately involved, then you can ask me just as like a curious partner about my sexual history. And that's probably because your partner wants to know, like, you know, it's like a precaution or maybe, and I'm talking about like STDs. And that's a very basic conversation to have with any sexual partner. You're allowed to ask like, are you sexually active with other people?
Right.
And that's in regards to your safety. It's not like you're prying on this person's value or like sex life. You know what I mean?
I agree.
So I think that conversation needs to happen later on in not even in a relationship, in a partnership.
It's so crazy that you say that because I feel like in any situation of mine that's gotten more serious than the rest, I've never had that conversation with like, what's your number? Or like...
Same.
I just realized that now that you said that.
I've asked about like exes.
In what regard?
Just like, I just want to know who you've dated before because if a bitch follows me...
This is why
this is why you gotta know, because if a new girl follows you, you gotta ask, be like, are you associated with this girl? I just want to know so that
you like to go across the world to find your people. For me, it's like crossing state boundaries is all right. Like from Michigan to Ohio, I could do that. You need to go from New York to France or something like. We gotta cross. You need a passport.
I have a kink for borders.
You need a passport to cross.
I like to date foreign men so I could travel the world. That's
she wants
that's the secret.
She wants stamps on her passport. That's all it is.
I'm collecting stamps.
I'm collecting t-shirts. I saw this other TikTok the other day, which makes me realize that I really need to stop hanging out on TikTok. But regardless, it was like, if you're having sex with somebody from another country, you better do the most amazing job you've ever done because you're representing the whole country. So make us proud. So
don't
are
worry,
you doing
America.
that?
I'm making you proud.
She said, I'm pulling out the tricks.
So that ick of a guy asking me about my sexual history is an ick for a reason, because I know that he's associating it with my value as a person. Mm-hmm. And I am so anti like that. You know what I mean? General. I'm a very like sex positive person, and I'm the type of person who doesn't believe that someone's value comes from their sexual history at all. I don't give a fuck how many partners you have, as long as you're a good person at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? Because it's your body and you get to do what you want to do with your body. Yeah. But I think in our culture and many cultures, sex is so taboo. And like the act of even having sex before marriage is so...
I mean, not even getting there. The act of talking about sex, let alone actually having sex and going into that whole world is so taboo, to the point where we're lacking so much information around being able to have sex and anything that comes along with it.
Since we're talking about sex in this episode, I found this post on Instagram a couple of months ago and I saved it for a topic, for this specific topic. This girl, whatever she wrote in this post, represents the cause of not talking about sex, making women feel so ashamed about sex, to the point where it's not even about sex. It's like they lack general knowledge about their bodies in general. It's like they prevent us from learning about our bodies and making us feel so comfortable within our bodies to even prevent us from having sex or like pleasurable sexual experiences.
I was going to say, honestly, I wonder if like a major population of Albanian women have sex just to have sex for my pleasure. Like, this is what I want to do.
I hope so. Actually, fun fact, you know the show Bridgerton?
Yeah.
You know, in the first season, have you watched it?
I haven't watched the whole thing.
Okay, so in the first season, so you know, this takes place like back in the day, but it's basically that era where men would like court women and they'd go to balls and, you know, and in the show, the girl falls in love with this guy, right? And then they start like making out, it gets steamy, but there's this one point where he says like, you need to go home and you need to like pleasure yourself. And she was like, what? She was like,
I know what you're talking about.
Like she didn't even know the concept of like how to pleasure herself. Yes. And so she goes home and, you know, masturbates, she pleasures herself and reaches climax by herself. And then they have sex. So I loved that. I love the fact that they emphasized that he made sure that she knew that how to get comfortable with her body, because back in the day, men were very sexually active with prostitutes and all that, you know, the forsaken women, you know what I mean? Whereas the eligible women, they were very unexperienced with sex. So I found that so attractive that he made sure that his partner knew how to satisfy herself before he
could satisfy her.
Yeah,
that's hot.
So going back to this post, we're gonna use this post as the backbone to the conversation, because we're gonna go in and dissect it bit by bit, because I think this covers a lot. So the post is from this Instagram page called Balkanism, which I'm sure a lot of Albanian and Balkan and foreign people are very aware of, because it's a pretty popular page. Yeah. And this is directly from their Instagram, because somebody submitted this to them anonymously, and I'm going to read it verbatim. I'm a 23-year-old woman born in America with parents who immigrated here from the Balkans 25 years ago. When I turned 18, I tried having sex for the first time. It didn't work, and in my head, I knew something was wrong. Long story short, through the years, I came to learn that I had a condition called, and I'm going to butcher this, so please excuse me, vaginismus. Vaginismus. I'm very, very sorry if I butchered that. And if you're laughing at me right now, please laugh at me. I deserve it. The body's automatic reaction to the fear of some or all types of vaginal penetration. Whenever penetration is attempted, your vaginal muscles tighten up on their own. You have no control over it. One primary cause of this pelvic floor disorder is how you are exposed to the idea of sex growing up, usually through culture or religion. I grew up in a traditional Albanian household in New York City. Albanians in America are seemingly more backwards than the ones back home because they try to model something from years and years ago that no longer exists.
Oh.
Preach. Both my parents grew up with Muslim influence in their household. Nonetheless, regardless of religion, most Muslim and Catholic Albanians alike raise their daughters with the same ideology. No sex before marriage. Any sex talk is taboo. Girls are not allowed to publicly have boyfriends. Girls that have a sex life without a husband are deemed as low worth. Marriage/engagement at an early age is rush. I wonder why. ... And it continues. Overall, an extremely toxic culture in regards to the topic of a sex life, where women are not allowed to do so many things that men do without a second glance. They are seen as dirty or not pure for completely normal things like masturbation. So this is what I, amongst many other women, grew up in. Same. My mother constantly ached for me to open up to her as a child and young teen about boys. That's a privilege. I didn't have that privilege.
Okay.
However, I found it impossible when I would hear her reiterate things that I knew I didn't want to live up to. That last sentence kind of confused me, but you analyzed it perfectly.
Like, she would want to go to her mom and tell her situations, but she would hear how her mom talks about other people's child who's going through that situation. So she's like, why would I go tell my mom this if she was just talking crap about so-and-so's daughter doing the same thing I'm doing, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, it defers you from talking to your parent because you already know what they would say about the situation.
It's like with mental health. Like, if they talk about a depressed person as like crazy, and if you're depressed, you're like, I'm not going to tell you.
Right? Like, it's like, she's going to call me a hoe. She's going to call her own daughter a hoe.
Yeah,
so like, let me not tell her.
So yeah, I didn't understand that when I first read it, but you explained it to me and it made sense. She said I wasn't allowed to date anyone outside of my ethnicity or religion, a religion we didn't even follow.
Literally.
And a culture I truly thought I didn't want to marry into. I never wanted to get married at a young age, but I did want to move out. I also did want to have sex like any other teenager. My mom would say things like, quote, your cousin saved her virginity for when she got married. That's the reason why her husband loves her so much.
Man.
As a new generation, we need to do better when it comes to sex education. This condition took away so many years of my youth, not only physically, but mentally. I cried almost every day thinking there was something insanely wrong with me and what I possibly could have done to deserve such a thing. I thought about if I would ever be able to have kids, if anybody would ever truly love me for me, if I couldn't fix it, and found other ways to feed into this insecurity and anxiety. After years and years of seeking answers, I met my soulmate. For a whole year, we didn't have sex. He finally got my family involved because I didn't have the balls to do so myself. They supported me in seeking treatment, which I've now just completed. That's amazing.
I really wonder what that conversation was like.
I really want to know what that conversation was like. Because if my partner went to my parents about our sex life, my dad would shoot him in the head. He'd be like,
That's why I'm like, I really wonder how that conversation was brought up and what was talked about in that conversation. But I'm glad she ended up figuring out what it was and she can be happy now.
I'm glad that they like supported her in finding treatment. That is insane. That's probably the most positive thing in this post.
Yeah, facts.
Although the success rate for treatment of vaginismus is over 90%, I consider myself lucky for overcoming it because it felt like such an impossible thing to do. Some women don't find the proper treatment or simply do not have access to it and are unable to bear children or ever sexually satisfy themselves in their entire life. Oof. I am sharing this story because the doctors I work with stated, this is the craziest part, the doctors that I work with stated that it is most common in women who grew up in ethnic households, so I wanted to take the opportunity to spread awareness, and even if it only reaches one other person, to say that you're not alone in this struggle. Signed, Anonymous. Well, anonymous, whoever you are, just know that your post made such an impact on me months and months ago that I saved it for one day when I had a podcast to talk about it.
Yeah, that is
so insane. Crazy. And the reason why I want to use this post as like the backbone to this whole episode about sex is because sexual repression is a consequence of all these things that are embedded about sex in our culture. And not only Albanian culture, this is a worldly thing. But we're going to talk specifically about the Albanian culture because we are Albanian women and we talk from our experience.
Exactly.
But we're not disregarding, we're not saying this is only prominent in Albanian culture. This happens in every culture.
I feel like especially in the whole Balkan area or Middle Eastern
100%,
families, like this is very prominent. Middle Eastern women in general, this is very prominent. So it's crazy. I did some research on like what it takes to cure this because I was really curious when she said she went and saw a doctor. So it's like if you do like relaxation techniques like mindfulness and all of these things, or psychosexual therapy, a type of talking therapy that aims to help you understand and change your feelings about your body and sex. Pelvic floor exercises, which I didn't even know were a thing.
I do that.
Do you?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's because it relieves tension in the pelvic area. And I'm really spiritual. So they say that most of your trauma is held in your pelvic area, which is crazy. Yeah. So in the spiritual world, and a lot of yogis will understand what I'm talking about, but they say that a lot of like trauma is held in the pelvic area. So if you stretch it out, it like helps you release that trauma, which is so funny because trauma and then unable to have sex. So it's funny how it correlates.
Kind of aligns.
Yeah.
And then sensate focused exercises to help your relaxation during sex and increase your sex drive.
Yeah.
Which that is so interesting to me because I didn't even know this was a condition until you read this story to me.
Yeah. I actually thought that I had this condition for a while.
Yeah.
Because I didn't start having sex until I was an adult. Okay. And contrary to popular belief, I didn't have sex when I was in high school and even after that. And it's because of all these things, but I'm not going to get into that right now. But for a while, I thought that I had this condition. I knew that I had an issue with sexual repression because anytime I would even have like not sex with a guy, but an experience, like an intimate experience with a guy, I would have to have alcohol in my system because my body literally would not relax. I could not relax. I was overcome with anxiety. I was overthinking the whole time. I was like, am I doing this right? Like, what's going on? You know what I mean? I'm like, oh my God, I'm a whore. Like, God is looking at me. So for a while, I actually thought that I had this. And then when I was sexually active, I found that I was like the sex that I was having was very, very painful and it was not pleasurable at all. So I've never been diagnosed with this, but from the symptoms that she's describing, I feel like I went through it to a certain degree. So that's crazy that you mentioned like all those practices because the 4 practices that I found to get over this is number 1, practice mindfully accepting sexual thoughts. Mindfulness can help you become more comfortable with sexual thoughts by increasing your awareness of them and learning to accept them without judgment. I want to emphasize that. Don't judge yourself for having sexual thoughts. It's so normal. Number 2, which helped me so much, read up on sex positivity. Start learning about your vagina and your body.
Yes.
So I started reading books about my body. I started listening to podcasts where older women would talk about their sexual experiences and about their body and stuff. And then I started to realize like, oh yeah, I go through that too. Oh shit. Yeah, I go through that too. Get comfortable with your body. You know what that means. You know,
put your readings into practice.
Exactly. And number 4, talk to your partner. If you do have a partner and you are having trouble with sex, talk to them. It's nothing to be ashamed about, and it's not your partner's fault and it's not your fault. It's just something to work through.
Exactly. So, which that leads me into the perfect, I'm so glad you mentioned that because I kind of want to talk about how being a part of this culture create these conditions, but also this uncomfort just in general to talk about this topic. And I think a lot of it has to do with the lack of information when it comes to this topic. Our moms like don't know better to teach us about these topics. Like all of the things that they teach you are through myths that they've heard, like the whole don't use a tampon because you're going to lose your virginity.
Not true.
Sort of myth.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, and if that like your hymen, if you don't have a hymen, that means that you're not a virgin.
Yeah.
Did
like,
you know I had a friend whose mother threatened to go send her to the doctor to see if she had a hymen to prove if she was a virgin or not?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you not understand how thin the hymen is, that it can rip if you're doing a stressful yoga position, if you're an athlete,
or riding a bike.
If you riding a bike. That's how one of my professors she was talking about it.
But it's so true, and it's like, yes, we need to talk about these and learn so much more about our bodies in general and about having sex and what it is and preventative measures about being protected to STDs
yes.
or pregnancies or anything like that. But it's like this topic we completely ignore.
We neglect
like,
it.
I have never ever in my whole 23 years of living talked about sex to my parents. But I think even in schools, there is a major lack of teaching. Like, I remember in America, we had, what was that class? Where it's like
ed.
Sex ed or whatever. Like, in Albania, there's no such a thing in majority of schools. I mean, at least the schools that I'm aware of, there's no sort of teaching about your bodies and what they go through and puberty and like everything else like that. And it's like a foreign topic. It's like a foreign language. How are you supposed to explore and how are you supposed to know what's happening and your rights and your body in general when this is something that is completely ignored? Like, the lack of knowledge, and information, it sort of takes away your power from being able to take care of your body and being able to know your rights when it comes to that. Like,
and like pleasure yourself and know what makes you feel good and know what makes you feel like, it's as if they think that teaching it is going to be the catalyst to them having sex.
Yes. Exactly.
Which is not true at all. And if you don't have sex until you're married and you're with this one partner and you're having these problems, you're probably thinking that there's something wrong with you, which you would have probably discovered if you had sex previous to the marriage. But now you're stuck with this one person and you're like, oh, what is going on? Like, there's like a lack of evolution. And this is not to say that we
are promoting sex pre-marriage or...
Well, that, yes. But it's also not to say that it's bad if you do save yourself for marriage.
Yeah.
You can do whatever the hell you want. Absolutely. It is your body. Never have sex. I don't care.
Yeah.
But we're speaking for those who choose to have sex, premarital and post-marriage.
Right.
And what they go through.
Which kind of leads us into, if we are informed on sex, which is very rarely within our community, at least according to our experiences, if we are informed on it, it's in a negative aspect, in like a shunned way if you are to partake in this activity. And I know you've had a lot of those experiences if you want to teach us about that.
Yeah. So this is a quote from the post that I had read before. One primary cause of this pelvic floor disorder is how you were exposed to the idea of sex growing up. I got stories for days. Are y'all ready? The tea is getting hot. Sit down, make a thing of chai, make a cup of chai, get yourself a Turkish coffee because we about to get into this, baby. So I never had the sex talk growing up at all. Like I said before, I feel like they prevent having these conversations with us because they just assume that we're not going to have sex until marriage. So they're like, oh, what's the point of having the sex talk with my daughter if she's not going to have sex until marriage?
Or they're like, let's not give her any ideas.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because you're going to give me the idea of sex, mom. Yeah, for sure. So I never had the sex talk. All the information that I learned about sex and my body was when I took that initiative. Right. I did learn a lot of the biological stuff in school. Yes, I was very fortunate in that matter. I had a very good biology teacher in middle school who taught us everything about sex, periods, pads, everything. But when it came to like sexual stuff and sexuality, I would read blogs, listen to podcasts, like I said. Oh my God, I've had so many negative experiences about sex and the whole idea of sex growing up. Like, there are two specific instances that I want to speak on because they were very vivid and they stuck with me like throughout life. One of them was I was walking with a relative and she was talking shit about another girl who is my age, who had a boyfriend, an Albanian girl who had a boyfriend. And I was in middle school at the time. She looked at me and she goes, once you're a bad girl, you can never be a good girl. And I was like, what is going on? I was like, okay. And I knew what she was talking about, but I didn't know how to process it. I was like, that's kind of a weird thing to say. Like, right. It made me have so much anxiety because I'm like, oh my God, once I'm a bad girl, I can't be a good girl. Like, I think that I still have that like guilt. That's that guilt and that shame till this day. Like, even though I'm such a sex positive person, I still like remember back on these memories and it's cringe. Makes you cringe. Yeah. Another story is when, and this is the most effed up one. Like, this one's so bad. I remember I was at the pool. It was during summertime, and my cousin's mom was talking to me. And mind you, this woman is not only Albanian, like very traditional Albanian, but she's also very religious. My family is Muslim, quote unquote Muslim, because they try to act like they're Muslim, but they're not. But she really is. And she was like, a woman is like a diamond. Like a woman's virtue, a woman's virginity is like a diamond. And once that diamond is shattered, it can never be whole again. So it'll never be as worth much as it was than when it was whole. I was young. This is not like, oh, when I'm 14, 15. No, this is like when I'm like 9, 8, 10 years old. And they're telling me these things about my virginity. Not only did I have personal negative connotations about sex and how women who have sex are viewed, but I noticed certain things in our tradition.
Or like we even have that tradition where like they used to hang the sheet.
Please go into that. Because I can't, when I talk about it, I get so pissed off. I get so enraged with this certain tradition. Go ahead. Take the fuck. If you're not watching this and you're just listening to audio, I'm pushing the microphone away from my mouth.
Like, I don't know. I pray to God this is still not a thing.
It is.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, this is just disgusting in all aspects, but it's like when after like the wedding and the couple goes to like consume the wedding after the wedding's done, like a bunch of people that are like almost like the wedding party kind of follows them wherever they're going. And after they do the deed, he'll like come out with like the sheet. If there is a blood on it, well, there should be blood on it because, you know, if you're a virgin, there should be blood on it. And like they come and like unfold it like a flag and like hang it up like in the wherever they are, like in the garden or something.
I heard that. Okay, I'm taking back the mic. I heard that they're supposed to hang it outside.
Yeah.
I also heard, and this is somebody who shared their personal experience with me when they were a child. Oh my gosh. I heard, this is what she told me, that as a child, it was a tradition to leave money on the bed where the blood is. And then she shared this. She said that she went in and took the money, almost like a tooth fairy type of thing.
That's disgusting. I had never heard that one before.
Take the sheet. That's what she told me. And so I don't know if this is 100% true, but
what explanation was given to the kid about what they were doing?
They said, "Go. There's money on the bed. Go get the bed sheet." Yeah.
No.
And you get to keep the money.
But I mean, this kind of leads into like why marriage is pushed so hard on girls at such a young age in our culture. Then
let's get into that.
Like, why does the whole village need to know that your girl is a virgin?
It's so gross. You know,
it's like a pride. It's like a pride moment for the husband's family. Like, yeah, we brought into our family a virgin girl, a pure girl.
Or like the husband, like, yeah, I married a virgin. No one's ever touched her before. Yeah. Like,
ew. And to the girls that do wait until marriage and to the girls that don't wait until marriage, great, amazing. It's your choice. It's your body. Do what you got to do what you want to do. But for them to have such pride and such the bragging rights that they get by getting a virgin girl, like,
let's talk about, I think this is a major reason why, like the girl said in her post, marriage/engagement at an early age is rushed. And it's because of this reason. This is why like a lot of arranged marriages happen to such young girls because guess what? They're still virgins.
Yeah. And I feel like it also has to do with like them wanting them to bear children so bad that if you go past 25, it's going to get harder for you to have a kid. So like we have to get you while you're fresh and young and can carry kids for us.
Yeah.
Which is also disgusting, which also leaves no room for them to inquire about being on birth control and not wanting to have kids at a young age. And like, it's that right is almost taken away from them because that decision is already made that you're getting married to have kids.
Yeah.
And that's your job in life.
Yeah. And we're talking about like the extreme cases as well, where like girls are really like forced into marriage, have arranged marriages like unwillingly to these men. And they feel like at that point they have to serve them to bear children and to serve them sexually, which is like really, really sad. But that is an extreme case, obviously. All of these things that we've talked about so far, and we're only halfway through what we got to say, everything that we've said so far emphasizes the point that a whole woman's value is based on her virginity, her pureness, her sexual history. And as people in general, not even as a culture, like we really need to diminish this. I feel like when men value women as women and not on what has entered her vagina at any moment in her life, the intimacy is there's more to it than just sex.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of decisions in our culture are made regarding like virginity.
What's even more annoying about not having any education about your own body, or having carrying all of this shame and guilt and fear, is that it only pertains to women.
Per usual.
Yeah.
With everything.
So I'm going to pull another quote from the post that says, quote, "Women are not allowed to do so many things that men do without a second glance." I think any woman and any sensible man can agree how infuriating that is. So much about our family's reputation is held on our virtue and our reputation. We're so important when it comes to our family's reputation. Why am I not the head of the household? Why is a man the head of the household? If everything I do is under a microscope and everything I do affects the family reputation, why am I not the head man? Why am I not the head of the household?
Okay.
This double standard is so prominent when you hear about these Albanian men, these Albanian bachelors who, whenever they decide to get ready, or whenever they decide they're ready to get married, they go and find a woman from back home, whether that's Kosovo or Montenegro. They go and wife up these young girls because who are virgins
after they spend their whole life in America,
whoring around in America. I witnessed this exact instance when I was a kid, because I remember my guy cousins were all sitting around and they were talking about one of our older cousins, and they were like, yeah, you know, so-and-so is ready to get married, but he wants a 30-year-old girl who's a virgin.
Excuse me?
I said, and I remember thinking, like, excuse me, sir, are you a virgin? So why do these bachelors go and seek these young virgins from Albania or back home?
Because they want to be able to manipulate them, and they want to be able to have somebody who's like untouched to claim and to like be like, this is my wife. When they say that this is my wife, they want it to be like somebody that's never
been touched.
But for you to specifically go get a wife from back home after you've lived in America your whole life, that's sus behavior. And I'm not saying that for like everybody that does that, but for a good amount of you, that's sus behavior, and that's you trying to hide all the shady shit you've been doing your whole life by going and getting a pure girl from over there that has no idea what you do, what you've done, or anything else like that.
So to close off this episode, we need to let our fellow female listeners know that your value as a woman does not stem from whether or not you are a virgin or how many sexual partners you've had. If the person that you are with is so concerned about how many sexual partners that you've had, drop them, because that's the way that they value you, and you don't want to be with someone like that. Also, if you are with someone and you are married, let's say hypothetically speaking, and you're married and you do not want to have sex with that person at any given moment, you can say no. It is your body, and you can decide whatever you want to do with that body. You are not somebody's like child maker. You are not somebody's like sex toy. You are a human being. You can say no whenever you want. If you do not want to have kids, you should not have kids.
It's so crazy because I have a friend who's my age who got married when we were like 17. And her situation was very different. Like, she was married off. She lived with her grandparents her whole life. So it got to a point where her grandma basically said, like, I have to marry her off because I can't take care of her anymore, which is disturbing in its own. But when I asked her, like, she had a kid almost immediately after marriage. And when I asked her, like, why are you rushing the process? Like, okay, your grandma married you off for family reasons, whatever it was. But why are you rushing having kids? Like, okay, get to know your husband. You literally don't know who your husband is. And she was like, well, I didn't make that decision. If my husband wants to have a kid, he's going to basically put a kid in me. And, like, that conversation I was just shocked at the lack of knowledge and the lack of power that Albanian women have over their bodies. And they think that once you're married, your husband basically owns you.
Yeah.
And they can do whatever it is that they want with your body, which is so disturbing. And, like, obviously we're talking about extreme cases here. This doesn't happen in every marriage.
This is not extreme, because I told you the conversation that I had with an Albanian guy very recently.
Oh my gosh.
Let me bring this up.
Oh my gosh, yes.
When I'm talking recently, I mean within the last year. And this is a grown man who I was having a conversation with.
Right.
I forgot how the conversation came up. Don't ask me for context. But at one point he said, if I want to have sex with my wife, I'm going to have sex with her, and that's not considered rape. And me and his homeboy, the homeboy was also Albanian. He was like, bro, that's rape. I was like, and then this man was fully like, no, that's my wife. If she's my wife and I choose to have sex with her, that's not rape because she's my wife.
Oh my gosh. That, like,
so you're not being extreme. We're not exaggerating when we say these things, because
they're fully
still
prevalent.
There. It's still prevalent.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's so prevalent, and it still happens so frequently. It's just disturbing to think that these men think they're in ownership of you. Like, technically in the Albanian household, like, you're always in ownership of a man. Like, your dad owns you up until the point you're married, and then your husband owns you.
Yeah.
And, like, that's how your life is supposed to go, which is disturbing in its own. But
anyways, I'm really tired of talking about men, so I want to circle back to our ladies now.
Let's do that.
Another thing that I want to point on is understand that sexual urges and the act of having sex and masturbation is completely normal, and it's the most important thing. It is the most natural thing. We are literally put on this earth to have sex and eat fruit. If anybody makes you feel bad about having sex or having sexual urges or masturbation, just know it is profoundly the most human thing on this, like the most human act on this earth. Like, I feel like people treat shooting up schools more naturally than they do of, like, a woman having sex at this point, which is very, very sad.
Or getting an abortion for that fact.
Or getting an abortion. By accepting and acknowledging and expanding your awareness about the different ways sexual repression can arise, which is you not being educated about your body, you feeling like your body is just meant to serve a man, you can avoid the effects of this by healing and changing it. And just if there's no information out there or in front of you about your body and about sex, please take that initiative for yourself, for your own knowledge. Don't go looking up how to give a blowjob just so that you can pleasure a man. Look up how a woman's body works.
Yeah.
And sit there and understand what makes you feel comfortable and what doesn't make you feel comfortable. Because if you have power over your body and within yourself without a partner, you're going to realize that same power and that mentality transfers into your life in general.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you should not depend on a partner to satisfy you sexually, which is the same case in life. You should not depend on anyone in life to satisfy you, because at the end of the day, you're all you got. And it's very, very true when people say that stuff outside of your life transfers into the bedroom. So if you're feeling, it's true, because if you're feeling all this trauma and you're not satisfying yourself, you think that you're going to be able to perform in the bedroom. You think that you're going to be able to find satisfaction for yourself when you're having sex with someone. No, because you can't depend on somebody to satisfy you in that way. You can't depend on somebody to teach you. I mean, you can expand through experience, but like you should be able to want to have that experience.
Yeah, and
yourself.
And if you are having these confused moments, and even if you're not, and you just want somebody to talk about it, if you don't have someone that you can talk about sex openly, please schedule a OBGYN appointment.
Please,
like these are so important to just go and do a health checkup in general, without having to go for any reason. But if you do want somebody to completely openly talk to you about it, talk to you about periods, talk to you about birth control, talk about penetration or anatomy or in general, like at least you have that route that you can take where you can go and talk to someone and ask like even the most basic questions about it, and not feel embarrassed or feel any sort of way about bringing this conversation up. I remember in my first OBGYN appointment, I literally asked her, because of all these myths about birth control or all this myths about tampon usage and all of these things, I was like, I just need you to clarify everything for me. And I was lucky to I found a great doctor where she sat with me for an hour and basically like told me everything I needed to know. So that's definitely a route you can take if you don't have somebody that you can comfortably open up to. But this can be a lesson for parents. Don't let your child have to figure out this on its own the way you did. Because I know my mom figured it out on her own. Your mom probably did too, because there's no way she sat there and had a conversation about sex with her mom. There's like our grandparents. Imagine that. So be that source of information for your children so that they don't go through this life ignorant about this topic that's so prevalent in their life. Like this is something that they're going to go through. And if they're going through problems like having one of these conditions, wouldn't you rather be the source of information for them and not the source of
and the roadblock,
the cause of it in a way where all you tell your child is don't have sex,
or you actually don't talk to your child at all because you think oblivion is bliss and you think that not talking about it just makes the problem go away. It doesn't. It makes the problem worse.
So as a mom, tell them about periods. Tell them about what's coming before it actually happens. Tell them that their bodies are going to change. Tell them that it's natural to have sexual thoughts. It's natural to want to have sex. Tell them that whenever they're ready and whenever they find a partner that they feel comfortable with and they feel loved from, they can explore these routes with them whenever they are at the best point within the relationship. Teach them about birth control, the right information that you didn't have. Don't teach them about these myths that you're going to be infertile or you're going to lose your virginity by using a tampon. Like, stop feeding our women with misinformation and keeping them ignorant in topics that can change their life. I think that's so important, and that's your job as a parent, to be able to be the source of information to your child in any topic, regardless of what it is, especially when it's a taboo topic and our men can take advantage of your daughters from it.
Okay, so I want to...
the journal's out.
For people who are listening us on the audio, I whipped out one of my old journals. And this is kind of where I want to end this podcast episode on. Because like I said, when I was going through this phase in my life where intimacy and the idea of sex was so anxiety ridden for me, and I sought out resources and information to help me overcome this problem. I wrote it down in my journal, and I'm gonna read some things because I want to share. I want to pass on this knowledge to other girls who may be going through what I went through. So this is notes from a podcast called the Multi-Orgasmic Mama. Increase your confidence in the bedroom with 3 holistic sex techniques.
Ooh.
And this is not to promote like people having sex, but the points that she makes are very like self-empowering, and those are the points that I want to touch on. So, number 1, In order to unwind our capacity to love someone else, you have to learn to relate to your body, to your pleasure, and to your feelings. Number 2, ask yourself, how much do you depend on your partner to take care of your sexual needs? Are you dependent on your partner to turn you on and meet all of your sexual needs? Needing a partner to fulfill all of your sexual needs can be super harmful, and it can create a projection and a sense of neediness within the relationship. When you practice self-pleasure, it makes you feel like a whole and empowered individual. When you are able to meet your own sexual needs, not only are you more capable of showing your partner how to pleasure you in a way that feels good to you, but you can also be able to reciprocate that love to your partner. And then you have a healthy sex life. Number 3, self-pleasure is directly related to how you make love. If you want to show up sexually confident, how can you do that through self-pleasure? Ask yourself questions to find out what's really going on for you. What part of your body is inhibiting you from being confident in the bedroom in the first place? What's going on inside of your body when you show up sexually with a partner? Sexual energy is important because if you're sensitive to it, you can start to see where your energy and emotion exists inside of your being. I'm not reading this to promote sex or tell you to be like practice being sexually confident in the bedroom. The whole point is to be in tune with your own body, understand your body completely, because it'll reveal a lot of things to you about your life and your energy in general as a human being. And don't let anybody let you be oblivious to that and leave you powerless.
Exactly. I think it's important to understand that this is something that you're supposed to get. It's supposed to be fun. Having sex is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be something you enjoy. It's supposed to be something that does not feel like a chore that you're doing to make somebody else happy.
And it should not be so fearful of repercussions following it afterwards.
Exactly. So learn about protection. Like, nobody tells you have to pee after sex. We are supposed to learn this information prior to having to figure it out on our own while it's happening. Yeah. So let's keep that in mind.
And if you are having sex, if you choose to have sex, please be safe, be protected. Do it because you want to do it and not because somebody else is making you do it.
Get your checkups.
Go to the gynecologist. If you're young and you're too scared to book an appointment with a gynecologist, there is sources like Planned Parenthood. Even go to an urgent care. Tell your mother that you fell down a flight of stairs and go to an urgent care. Yeah. And because the doctor, it's going to be confidential. Nobody's going to find out. If you want to go on birth control, Planned Parenthood can give you birth control without your parents finding out through insurance. So
there are ways to do it.
You just got to make that extra effort.
Hopefully you won't have to go without your parents knowing and everything else like that. But with that being said, we're going to close this off. If you need somebody to talk to, you can DM us, email us, and we could be a source of information or connect you to somebody who knows more about this topic than we do.
Yeah.
And feel free to reach out to us with any other ideas that you want to talk about, or if you want us to expand on this in any sort of way.
This could definitely be a part 2. If any doctors out there are listening, if you know someone who's a doctor who would like to be on the show to provide legitimate facts and information to provide to the masses and our listeners, please reach out to us. Reach out to us if you have any stories regarding sex, any stories regarding sexual repression. I would like to know if any other girls my age go through that, or maybe you just realize that you're going through it from this podcast. Please let us know. Please let us know. That would make my heart really, really full.
So we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. This was supposed to be informative rather than us promoting going and having sex all you want, which you should if you want to. But this is supposed to be an informative episode. So for all the people that are going to come to us talking about, stop telling my daughter to have sex, that is not what we're doing here. And maybe you should be teaching your daughter what we're talking about. And that's on period.
You can find this podcast on YouTube at Vajza Gra with Albanian subtitles. You can also listen to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a 5-star review. Like we said, you can email us at vajzagra@gmail.com at any time. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Vajza Gra. If you take anything away from this episode, just know that your value does not come from your vagina. You give yourself that power. Okay? Your vagina should be valuable to you and nobody else. And on that note, I love you, and remember, you're never alone.